In most small towns that still have newspapers, you can go to one section, you can read about the criminal court system, and you can read who was convicted of what. That's been a long-standing tradition, not only in America, but really throughout human society. It was often the case that when someone was convicted of a crime, their crime was publicized, really in an attempt to be a deterrent, so that, if you commit this crime, this is what's going to happen to you. The Bible tells us that's exactly what happened in John chapter 19. In fact, in verse 19, it says Pilate wrote an inscription. This is after Jesus is crucified. He's been nailed to the cross. His body is hanging there. And Pilate wrote an inscription and put it on the cross. And the writing of the inscription said, "This is Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." The inscription was read by many Jews because the place where Jesus was crucified was near to the city, and it was written in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. So people of every language who would be passing through there could read what was written on there. Then the chief priests and the Jews said to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews, but rather write, 'He said, I am the King of the Jews.'" Pilate, finally, with some conviction about the whole thing, says, "What I have written, I have written." He's tired of dealing with them. He knows the whole thing was a sham, and he's simply, as he said earlier, washing his hands to the thing, and yet perhaps as a little bit of a spiteful reaction to them, and a last minute, on them, he writes that, because that was the last thing that they wanted it to say. And he finally would not cave in to the pressures that they had been exerting on him this entire time. There's a couple of interesting things about the inscription. These inscriptions usually listed, in fact always listed, the criminal behavior. This one has nothing like that. It's just the identity of the man. It would have the identity of the man, and it would have the criminal behavior, but the criminal behavior is missing here because Pilate already said, "I find no fault in him whatsoever." There's no sin. There's no wrongdoing. There's nothing there that is convicting Jesus of anything unrighteous or ungodly. It's just simply stating who he is. But there's something else that's also pretty interesting about this. Although Pilate had no true deep down conviction about who Jesus was, although the Jews were rejecting Jesus and crucifying the very one that was the Messiah, a fascinating statement is made here. Pilate affirms to us the King. Jesus is the King. Let's not do to our King what they did.